Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Awesome. So today we're exploring Genesis, chapters 40 through 42. We've got this fascinating podcast episode we're pulling from, and it really gets into Joseph in Egypt.
Yeah, this is a pretty intense part of his story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We're going to see how hardship, can actually lead to unexpected opportunities. We're going to talk about divine timing and, that long raid to reconciliation.
Yeah. Those are some pretty big themes.
They are, but you know what? Even if you're not super familiar with the Bible, stick with us because these themes are universal.
Oh, absolutely. They're about resilience, second chances, forgiveness, things we all deal with.
Exactly. So let's jump in. What I find really intriguing about this part of Joseph's story is that it starts with him in prison, falsely accused, but he's still, making a positive impact.
Right. He's not letting his circumstances define him.
Not at all. So in Genesis 40, we see him using his ability to interpret dreams. He helps two of Pharaoh's officials, the cupbearer and the baker, understand these weird dreams they've been having.
Yeah, and it's not just the interpreting, it's his whole perspective. He attributes this gift to God. He says, do not interpretations belong to God.
Right. It's such a powerful statement of faith, especially given his situation.
Totally.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? He's in prison facing this huge injustice, but he still holds on to his faith. And he actually uses his talents to help others. What are some ways you've seen people, tap into their inner strength during rough times?
Well, I think sometimes adversity forces us to get creative. It pushes us to look inside and maybe discover talents or strengths that we didn't even know we had. And sometimes, like with Joseph, it leads to some pretty unexpected opportunities.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of opportunities, things get really interesting in Genesis 41. Pharaoh starts having these, seriously disturbing dreams, and nobody in his court can figure them out.
It's almost like the perfect setup for Joseph to step in, right?
It is. It's such a dramatic shift from interpreting dreams for, fellow prisoners to interpreting dreams for, the most powerful guy in Egypt.
Yeah, he goes from 0 to 100 real quick.
Right. And these dreams, they're pretty vivid, healthy cows being eaten by sequins and good grain being swallowed up by withered ears. What?
Definitely some nightmare fuel right there.
For sure.
Yeah.
But what sets Joseph apart is that he doesn't just interpret these symbols. He actually offers Pharaoh a real, practical solution.
Right. He tells Pharaoh that the dreams mean there will be 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. And then he gives Pharaoh a plan, store grain during the good years to prepare for those lean years to come.
Exactly. And it's fascinating because we find out that Joseph is 30 years old at this point. Remember all those dreams he had as a kid, the ones that got him in trouble with his brothers?
Yeah.
It's those dreams were foreshadowing his destiny.
It really makes you think about divine timing, Maybe
Yeah.
all those hard experiences were actually preparing him for this moment.
Yeah. It wasn't just about interpreting dreams. It was about having the wisdom and courage to offer solutions and to lead people through tough times.
Right. Sometimes our path isn't clear, but if we trust the process, keep learning and growing.
We might be surprised where we end up.
Exactly. So this is where things get really, really interesting. Years later, the famine hits, and guess who shows up in Egypt desperate for food?
Oh, no way. You're
Yeah.
kidding.
Nope. It's his brothers, the same ones who betrayed him all those years ago.
Wow, that's intense. Can you imagine what must have been going through Joseph's head? Seeing them again after all that time, knowing they have no clue who he is.
It's almost like, a psychological thriller or something.
Yeah, it really is. So he recognizes them, right? But they don't recognize him.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
It's a total dramatic irony. But here's the thing. He doesn't exactly, welcome them with open arms.
Oh, really? What does he do?
Well, he accuses them of being spies. He, puts them through all these tests.
I wonder why he did that. Do you think maybe it was his way of, seeing if they had actually changed?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's been years. Who knows what they've been up to?
Right. If they were still the same guys who, sold him into slavery.
Right, exactly. I think, maybe he wasn't just looking for an apology. He wanted to see, real remorse.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes when someone hurts you, it's not enough to just hear, I'm sorry. You want to know they really get it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That they understand how much they hurt you.
Right. And that they've actually changed. They're not going to do it again.
It really makes you think about forgiveness, is it even possible if the other person hasn't really changed?
It's a good question. And you know what else I find interesting? Even though Joseph is, in charge now, he doesn't just reveal who he is right away.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe he needed time to process his own emotions. Or maybe he wanted to, like, watch them and see how they treated each other.
Yeah, like see if their characters had actually changed.
Right. And then there's this scene where the brothers are talking about their past, and they say, "We're being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us, but we didn't listen." It seems like they're finally, like, starting to understand what they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a sign that maybe, just maybe, they're feeling some remorse.
Right. But it also shows, like, how complicated forgiveness can be, even if they are truly sorry. Can Joseph ever really forget what they did? And can they ever forgive themselves?
It's tough. It makes me think about how these stories, even though they're so old, are still so relevant today. We've all experienced, like, broken relationships, people betraying us. We've all struggled with forgiveness.
Yeah, totally.
And, Joseph's story doesn't give us easy answers, but it does, like, show us how to think about these things. It reminds us that reconciliation is a process, and it often takes time.
Right. It's not something that happens overnight.
Exactly. It takes patience, looking inward, and being willing to, like, face some painful truths.
And I think that's true for both the person who was hurt and the person who did the hurting.
Absolutely. But, sometimes even when it's really hard, that process of forgiveness can be incredibly freeing.
That's a good point.
And you know what else strikes me about this story? It's how Joseph balances this need for justice with mercy. He doesn't just let his brothers off the hook.
Yeah, he holds them accountable.
Right. But he's also open to, like, reconciling with them.
It's like he finds this balance between accountability and compassion.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder if our lives were like stories. What chapter are we in right now? What trials are we facing? And are we letting those experiences, those hard times shape us?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, what are we learning from those challenges? Joseph's story, it's like it's got so many twists and turns. It reminds me that even the toughest chapters can have meaning, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes those hard times are when we discover our strength.
Yeah, our resilience, our capacity for forgiveness.
You got it.
It's like they say, right? We don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we face those challenges. And looking back on this whole deep dive, Genesis 40 to 42, we've covered a lot.
We have. I mean, we saw Joseph navigating prison life, using his gifts to help others, even when he was, really wronged.
Right. And it makes you think, like, we all have talents and skills, and they can be valuable even when we're going through tough stuff.
Exactly.
And then, we saw him rise to power, not just because he could interpret dreams, but because he also had the wisdom to offer solutions and to lead.
Right. Like he thought ahead.
Yeah. And it makes you think about how we can all kind of prepare for those tough times in our own lives.
Absolutely.
And then, oh, man, that reunion with his brothers. That was a whole other level.
Yeah, a real emotional roller coaster. Seriously. The way he wrestled with all that past hurt, the way he tested them, it really makes you think about forgiveness and how it's not just a one-time thing.
It's a process, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a journey.
And it's not about, just forgetting or saying what happened was okay.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging the hurt, holding people accountable, but also, like, being open to the possibility of change.
Yeah. In both ourselves and other people.
For sure. And that process of forgiveness, it can be messy, for sure, but it can also, like, lead to deeper understanding, stronger connection, maybe even a sense of redemption.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's like Joseph's story doesn't give us all the answers, but it gives us like a way to think about these things. It reminds us that healing takes time and that people can change. And even when things seem really, really dark, there's always hope.
Always.
So I don't know about you, but I'm really grateful for these stories. Even though they're so old, they still speak to us today,
Oh, definitely. It's like they remind us that these human experiences, the good, the bad, there's something we all share.
Absolutely. And maybe by looking at these stories, thinking about the people who came before us, we can learn from them.
Yeah, we can find some wisdom to help us on our own journeys.
Definitely.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep believing in the power of your own story.